Good day and welcome to In Real Time. My name is Costa Maragos. So good to have you with us here today. Once again, we are coming to you from our IKS studios here in Regina. I hope you're doing well. Let's hope so. The pandemic, of course, still causing so many concerns, and it's spreading its tentacles so far and wide right around the world. But I do hope you're doing well and keeping well. We have quite a great mix of guests here and topics to cover for you tonight over the next hour here on In Real Time. You know, would you believe that it's going to be 3 years in April since that tragedy involving the Humboldt Broncos bus crash? It's a tragedy that still runs and hurts deeply here in Saskatchewan and across many communities across the country. I'll be connecting with one member of those Humboldt Broncos who was on that bus and of course survived. His name is Tyler Smith, and he's become an advocate for mental health. And as an update on his quest to spread the good news of mental health out there, and I'll have that for you a little bit later on in this hour. Dealing with divorce. Have you been through a divorce? Now, we know that many of the divorces are settled amicably and with civility, but some are not, and they do cut deep emotionally and financially. Well, the province has started a pilot project in Prince Albert where it's mandatory mediation is required for splitting couples before seeking the legal route. And that pilot project will be moving on to Regina as well. So I'm going to talk to a local mediator from Regina, John Hewson from TCM Mediation, to find out what that program is all about. Also, how about trade barriers? You know, we're not talking about free trade deals with the US or NAFTA or the European Union. Talking about trade barriers within Canada. And apparently there are so many out there that it does affect us in our pocketbooks. It affects businesses in a very negative way. I'm going to talk to a local member of parliament who is pushing for fewer trade barriers across this country, and we'll find out what that means for us here in Saskatchewan. And I'm looking forward to sharing a story about a prairie rapper. We're connecting with Oboise Umobuarie, who is a U of R business student, and his unique Afro beat has caught the attention of some prominent musicians in Nigeria. This man was born in Nigeria. His family moved to Canada via the UK, and we're going to hear more about his journey and his unique sound. So those guests coming up. We've got another special guest coming up in just a moment as we go to Club Quarantine.
Feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my toes, feel it in my toes, yeah. Love is all around me, and so the thing.
I'm afraid you did it again, Bill.
It's just I know the old version so well, you know.
Well, we all do. That's why we're making the new version.
Right, okay, let's go. I feel it in my fingers.
In my fingers.
I feel it in my toes.
Feel it in my toes, yeah.
Love is all around. Oh, fuck, wank, bugger, shitting, ass, head and hole. Start again.
There you go. You know, we could use just a little bit of levity during these pandemic times. I don't know if you recognize that person. That's Julie Stewart Binks. She is based in New York. You may remember her from her time doing sports at CTV here in Regina, where she's moved on to a lot of big things in the sports broadcasting world. She's broadcast with ESPN Sports, with Fox Sports on the west coast of the United States. Now she's based in New York, where she's working with Fubo TV and Fubo Sports. It's all sports, all interviews, and she's certainly making an impact in the market. But she also has some unique, how can we say, observations about being quarantined in the largest city in the US, call it Pandemic Central, New York, and when she visited her family in Toronto, which is Canada's largest city. And she's posted a lot of those observations on her Twitter feed and on her Instagram, and is getting a lot of reaction. So I'd like to hear Julie's view on how she sees the pandemic world, and let's see if we can connect with her in New York right now. Julie, are you there? Okay, we have some connection here. We can't connect with Julie just yet, so let's go to a quick break and we're back after this.
He's covering everything that matters to you. It's the Rod Peterson Show. Tune in live Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to noon to catch the show live and be a part of the action. Take control by commenting live and sharing the show with your friends.
Welcome to Harbor Landing Village. We are a locally owned seniors community that our residents are proud to call home. We offer a full range of senior living options and care services designed to let you age in place. Within our unique family-friendly atmosphere, we offer amazing food prepared by our award-winning restaurant, Roots Kitchen and Bar. Harbor Landing Village, making our community your home.
All right, we got things back on track. Good to have you with us here on In Real Time. We are connecting with Julie Stewart-Binks. As I mentioned just before the break, she's in New York. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Costa. Thanks so much for having me on here today.
Oh, that's so good to have you on the program. How have you been doing lately?
Pretty good. Things are looking up in the country that I currently live in right now, and it just feels like a bit of a new day in terms of trying to get back on track in dealing with the pandemic and just, just having more love than hate, which has been sort of a big theme recently, to put things nicely.
Hey, I want to ask you about your show before I get to your observations on being quarantined in the pandemic in New York and Toronto. Your show actually caused a little bit of a stir here in Regina with a former rider talking about the smell of manure in the air. I think he was trying to be nice about things, but tell me, what was the fallout from that?
Yeah, so I host a show called Drinks with Binks. It's kind of like this, although we have drinks on it. And that can be anything from water to wine or a Negroni to coffee. And so I had former Saskatchewan Rough Rider Will Blackman on my show. And, I didn't realize that he had had a cup of coffee with the riders. And so I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't really have many people on my show that have spent time in Regina. And I spent time there. I spent 2 years working at CTV Regina. And so I thought I have to ask him just his initial thoughts. And actually earlier in the day, I messaged a few people, one of them being Rod Peterson, that we both know well. And I said, what happened with Will Blackman? Like, he was only there for a short period of time. And he said he doesn't really like to talk about it, or he hasn't really talked about it. So I was a little bit, concerned. I didn't have a chance to ask him ahead of time. So I sort of tread lightly, like, what were your initial thoughts on Regina when you went to go play for the Riders? And of course, he what I took from it was that he likened it to Green Bay because he played for the Packers. And I thought, okay, that to my American audience, they understand what Green Bay looks like and feels like. But then, he said, when I stepped off the plane, it smelled like manure and farms and cows. And it did cause a bit of a stir in that regard for a lot of people that live in Regina, where you're like, there's not really any cows or manure around. Like, there's grain elevators and there's a lot of land, but I don't really see a lot of cows and that sort of thing. But then, and I didn't follow up on this because I hadn't prepped him for it. So I wasn't sure if he had felt comfortable talking about it. But when he did say that he liked Regina, he just didn't like the coaches. Right. And so I knew that right then I kind of got, in any other show, if I was, on your show or working in Regina again, that's what you want to hear from your guests. You want to hear them say that, because then you say, well, how come, or why, or how, or any of that. But I thought, after talking with Rod, I'm like, I'm just going to put this one to the side
That's okay.
This isn't real. We're not here to sort of point fingers on who did what, where, when, why, and how. But
it must feel nice.
It did cause a stir, as you mentioned.
Well, yeah, and you know what? You're still making news here in Regina from New York. Now, I want to ask you about your observations of being quarantined, of the pandemic in New York. You've done the quarantine on both sides of the border. What are you're really, I just find your Instagram posts, your Twitter posts so interesting and perceptive of how you view the world in New York and how New Yorkers are dealing with the pandemic. Tell us a little bit what are some of the things you've been observing there?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. So, of course, New York City was a very difficult place to be at the beginning of the pandemic because of course, the way that the virus spreads, but New York City, it's sort of like everyone's packed on top of one another. I mean, I'm living in a studio apartment. There's many people all over the place. So it's just, the spread is so easy to happen. But New Yorkers really listened. And we were so lucky to have Governor Andrew Cuomo, who every single day was giving these briefings that just sort of gave us some guidance like, okay, yeah, you're right. Don't go outside, wear your mask all the time. This is why these things are being shut down. This is what you should be doing. And at the time, we were all just looking for information. That's all we wanted. And so that was nice. Everyone did it. And I find like New Yorkers are a lot like Canadians. They're, they've been through a lot. But they listen and they do sort of what they're supposed to do to get the right outcome. And so if you go outside in New York City right now, you will see every single person wearing a mask. We have a mask mandate in this city, and everyone follows it. And people care about one another. And if you aren't wearing your mask, a New Yorker is going to tell you to put your mask on because New Yorkers will always say what is on their mind.
And what have you seen examples of that?
I will say, all the time, every single day I go outside. I was FaceTiming my mom, just showing her around New York because it's like you'll go walking outside just to see your city again because I haven't been able to see the city. I've just been literally inside the whole time. So I was like showing her all around the city on FaceTime, and then I'm like, see, look, every single person passing me right now has a mask on. And I found that was different because I did go home to Toronto 2 different times in the summer and at Christmas, which means you have a 2-week quarantine. I stayed in an Airbnb downtown in Toronto and then was able to go home. And I think that that's a good thing. I think that's very, very smart of the Canadian government. It costs money. I'm thankful that I can afford to be able to do that. And hopefully we can get to a point where maybe there's some kind of like testing out of quarantine, which we have here in New York City, where if you come into the state, you have to quarantine for 10 days. But if you quarantine for 4, you can go get a test. And if you're negative, then you're allowed to be out of it. So, everyone's still trying to figure out what the best thing is. But when I was in Toronto, I noticed more things shut down, but people aren't expected to wear masks outside. So, which I found wild because like I have not been outside without a mask on in 10 months. I haven't even, when I go put my groceries or my garbage outside just across the hallway, I'll put a mask on just to walk like 2 steps. And so that was the biggest difference going from Canada to the US. But here, there are more things open. There is outdoor dining in New York City. The shops are open. And New York is probably considered doing this the best way possible. And we still have a lot of things that we can do. Around the country, not so much. I mean, it has taken a backseat because of the political climate and what has gone on in this country in the last couple weeks, where honestly, Costa, coronavirus wasn't even one of the top 3 stories in the national news because we were dealing with the terrorism that really happened at the Capitol on January 6th. So now that hopefully we have the right people in charge to be able to tackle this, and even just in his first day in office with President Joe Biden being able to be an adult in charge, we got to be able to get this thing under control in this country because this country is not dealing with it well.
But yet it seems odd to hear because we always hear about rebel Americans not believing in the coronavirus even exists, let alone wearing masks. But you're saying New Yorkers are way more careful in wearing masks versus what you even saw in Toronto. It seems like that's not what the kind of the story we always hear about.
Well, I would say it still is true, that idea of the rebel the rebel Americans against the masks is still part of almost the identity of America as a whole that has been built on the identity of individual freedoms. And so, the right to free speech and the right to not be able to wear a mask, not have to wear a mask, is something that has been a conflict in this country. And you do still see people like that. But I would say in New York, which is, typically a very blue state, a blue liberal city, is one that has been listening to scientists. And this pandemic has become so overly politicized, which has been, it's awful when you think about it, because just the amount of lost, because the messaging made it blue versus red instead of, right versus wrong, and doing the right thing to be able to get this thing under control. So I will say that, there are people we'll see having parties, going out, doing that sort of thing. My boyfriend and I live in this apartment. We work in this apartment. We don't do outdoor dining. We don't see our friends. We haven't seen our friends that live in this apartment building in months. And so, we're trying to do the right thing. We're probably on sort of the further end of that spectrum. But, I can't expect other people to act this way if I don't act this way.
And
it's a sort of a small price to pay.
So that's how you're observing the world from your apartment window, it seems, this pandemic world. You're also doing the show from your apartment. I've watched some of it. It looks fantastic. What's that been like for you?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it has been very interesting. The silver lining of the pandemic is very much like your show, is that you can connect with guests all over the country, all over the world, because of the nature of it being virtual. So beforehand, we'd have to book cars for guests and see who's in the city and all of these different logistical nightmares. But now we've been able to really have whoever on. And I've been able to take this literal show. This is where I sit and do it. I've been able to do it from my childhood bedroom in Toronto, from quarantine, from out east in the Hamptons, from really kind of all over the place. And so that has been the nice thing. Although, as everyone knows, working from home, it's very hard to get a separation from your workplace. So if I'm eating dinner here, I'm working out here, I'm doing my job here, I don't even know what day it is anymore. So, but that is the worries at this point. We just got to get this pandemic under control.
Yeah, because unlike a lot of people in Regina, if you're in that small little apartment with the studio the kitchen's as big as the bedroom kind of a thing. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Hey, before we wrap things up, Julie, and I know in an email to me this morning, you were so thoughtfully wanted to say something about Warren Woods, local sportscaster who passed away yesterday, longtime fixture in Regina, loved by thousands and so many people. You didn't work with him, but certainly worked in the same market and remember him. What are your thoughts on the late Warren Woods?
Yeah, I was completely shocked to hear about the passing of Warren Woods. And he was someone who was just so kind and gentle, and reading everyone's tweets and words about him, it's like he was the same person to everyone that he met and he encountered. And having worked at the competitor for him, because when he was at Global Regina and I was at CTV Regina, we always had our newscasts and we'd watch theirs and they'd watch ours. And whenever I'd go out to different events and covering different events, like Woodsy would always be like, oh, come on in, make sure you have a space in the scrum, and always ask you about your day, how are things going? Just like a genuinely good, nice, warm-hearted person. And so it just pains me to see that, that we've lost him so soon, and that it was because of COVID. And so it just, hopefully people obviously get to, see the legacy that Warren Woods has on so many people and the Regina community and beyond that, but also a reminder to really take this pandemic seriously, because it can be, any one of our friends and family that succumbed to this. And sadly, it was Warren Woods, but he has left many, many very good memories for anyone that met him.
Oh, so true. Our sympathies to his family and his friends and the whole community, because the community is grieving for sure. Julie, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on your success and your wonderful programming from your apartment in New York. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Costa. I appreciate it. I'm really glad I was able to join you here on your wonderful show.
Thank you. Bye for now.
He's covering everything that matters to you. It's the Rod Peterson Show. Tune in live Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to noon to catch the show live and be a part of the action. Take control by commenting live and sharing the show with your friends.
Welcome to Harbor Landing Village. We are a locally owned seniors community that our residents are proud to call home. We offer a full range of senior living options and care services designed to let you age in place. Within our unique family-friendly atmosphere, we offer amazing food prepared by our award-winning restaurant, Roots Kitchen and Bar. Harbor Landing Village, making our community your home.
This is In Real Time. I'm Costa Maragos. It's great to have you with us. Navigating the choppy waters of divorce can be costly and cost a lot emotionally as well. Nearly 40% of married couples in Canada do divorce, and some of those cases end up in bitter and very costly court battles. Mediation is one way to avoid all that. Saskatchewan has started a pilot project called Mandatory Early Dispute Resolution. That's happening in Prince Albert, and the program is moving to Regina. John Hewson is a Regina-based family mediator and head of TCM Mediation Studio. Hi, John.
Hi, Costa. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you about this program. Can you give us the Coles notes on how it works?
Well, just to be clear, I'm representing TCM Mediation Studio, not what the ministry is doing, but as you indicated in your introduction, in Prince Albert, there's a pilot project that's now encouraging folks, requiring them to take some form of dispute resolution process before going through the legal process and ultimately trying to get to court. It's trying to get folks to make sure they've exhausted some sources that may help them get through the process more effectively, more efficiently, and with less conflict.
Well, I thought mediation was sort of a part of the whole thing of splitting up. So what's different about this?
Well, it is, but as I come across clients, we see things on TV, we read things in books that if we're looking at wanting separation or divorce, is that especially in TV, we'll call up a lawyer, and before you know it, we're in court and working towards getting a divorce. But it's not that efficient. There's other resources that they can try first. This is not to not include the legal process. That's certainly part of it, to make sure people are the analogy I use is good fences make good neighbors. But before you can get to that end agreement of separation, there's conflict there. We're talking about a history of conflict that maybe is leading folks to recognize that this isn't the relationship they want to be in. However, they do have a family and the responsibility of children, so there's other ways to navigate the legal system in a way that's going to give them a bigger or greater voice in what the outcome is going to be. And that's what I think is not only happening in Saskatchewan, but across Canada. We're trying to give people a bigger voice as to what is going to be best for their particular family. And if it's good for their family, it's going to be good for their children. That's what we're really shooting for.
So with, let's say, a couple that's decided to go its separate ways with a couple of children, young children, they have some outstanding issues and they come to you. So what do you do for them that can help to some kind of an amicable split up?
It's when they come and see us, what they're bringing with them usually is a duffel bag full of history. And there's an emphasis on the past, and there's communication shortfalls. So what we're going to do and what we have done is there's teaching part of the mediation process to understand more effective ways of communicating, understand how they're coming across, understanding that the past conflicts aren't necessarily going to help them move forward. So the legal process has a lot to do with evidence and affidavits and what went on in the past. And mediation is a current and forward-thinking process. So it helps folks recognize what's going to drive this process forward rather than pointing fingers and holding them in the past. We need to look at the present and move forward.
Under this mandatory early dispute resolution plan, though, what if one of the two couples just decides this mediation isn't working and steps away? What happens to the process then?
Yeah, and that's inevitable because some conflicts are such that mediation isn't going to be appropriate. So if one or both of the couple determine that it's not going to work for them, at least they've tried to have that conversation, and hopefully they've picked up maybe a few tools in that initial contact with a mediator. But it's not for everybody. And if both parties aren't involved in the process after they've spent 2 or 3 hours in mediation and they can see that it's not going to work for them, then they go to the next step. So often what we like to see is folks sitting down over the kitchen table, if you will, trying to figure out how they want to separate. The next step would be mediation. And if that doesn't work, then we look at collaborative law. There's collaborative lawyers who are trained with mediation and can represent their clients still collectively. And if that doesn't work, then you carry on through lawyers negotiating on your behalf. But as you move forward, your voice sometimes becomes less of an impact, and law is kicking in, and ultimately someone else is going to be making decisions for you and your family.
Well, how is that? How does that? Well, we'll leave that aside. But there are lawyers that advertise that this is their specialty, is divorce, and I assume that most lawyers do try to find some mediation or some middle ground so they can avoid the court, avoid the judges.
Absolutely.
And that. So what's the difference between that and what's happening here?
Well, there's a cost to lawyers have spent years in preparation for their training, and when you're looking at hiring lawyers who are going to be running in legal fees per hour of maybe $650, $700 per hour, and that's representing both parties. An hour can get very expensive, where the cost of hiring me or one of there's scores of family mediators throughout the province. You're looking at maybe $150 to $300 an hour, but that's just for the mediator to help the couple. So the cost is time. So it's trying to slow the process down and allow them to maybe iron out some of their issues with respect to maybe child support or spousal support, property division, and the all-important parenting arrangement if there's kids involved in the situation. So there's a time and cost benefit there, so that when you do go see your lawyer, you're using the right tool for the right job there. So that's why I say it's not mediation or the legal process. It's bringing it all together and using a variety of tools that are going to help this family, who are going to continue as a family, even though they're working towards separation, but they're transitioning in a more healthy way.
And that's a good thing. You're transitioning in a healthy way, given when there are kids involved. Let me ask you about the cost here. You mentioned that certainly lawyers' fees can be pretty high. What's with this dispute resolution pilot project in Prince Albert coming to Regina? What does this cost couples if they're thinking of having to go this route, for example?
As it rolls out in Regina and also as it is in PA right now, there's different costs for the parties, which will be specific to them, but it's far less expensive than going straight to hiring your lawyers.
Well, that's good to know. It's a good starting point, I guess, on a situation.
It's a starting point, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for telling us about this, John. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Costa. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Does this look familiar? Your fans deserve an incredible arena experience. It's time for an upgrade. Stunning graphics, Revenue opportunities are just the beginning with our in-venue display systems and scoring technology. Let us help you find the best solution for your facility. DDG, always delivering the best fan experience. Find us at ddgregina.com. IKS Live. IKS Live. Western Canada's premier production services company. LED sign rentals. Video production. Event management. Look no further than IKS Live. Visit our website. IKS Live. Always the best seat in the house. IKS Live.
This is In Real Time. I'm Costa Maragos. The Humboldt bus crash, it still resonates with people in Saskatchewan, people all around the world, actually. 16 people were killed in that crash. 13 survived. The Humboldt members of the Humboldt Broncos were on board. One of those survivors is Tyler Smith, and he joins us. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. You've been talking a lot about mental health since you were recovering from this crash physically, that is. How have you been feeling these days?
Good for the most part. I mean, I guess it's just one thing that I've lived by since this all happened is definitely just an everyday thing. So I think just being able to keep consistently surround myself with my friends and family who love and care for me is a big thing for me, and just being able to, like I said, move forward and obviously it's something that we'll never forget. It's on my mind. It's on our minds every day for the rest of our lives. So I don't think that's never going away, and I never want to forget those beautiful lives that we lost. So that's an important thing for me.
When you say it's always on your mind, what do you mean by that a little more specifically?
I think the main thing about that is just like the unanswered questions that we'll never get. Just the whys, the whys of why did this happen, and why those people, and why us, and all that. And unfortunately, in our situation, we're never going to get those answers. So that's another part of being able to move forward is just being able to obviously remember each and every one of them every day is something that I like to do. It's something that keeps me grounded, and it's something that keeps me moving forward. I mean, I think we all have embraced that there's going to be good and bad days. So just being able to keep moving forward, and no matter what day comes, you never really know what's going to happen tomorrow. So.
Now, you've been public about mental health, and you've had some public speaking engagements. You have a clothing line for charity that we'll talk about in a moment. What got you thinking of doing that?
I think the original thinking behind that was honestly just to kind of realize that there's a lot of other people that were in my shoes. I mean, in those shoes of putting my emotions on the back burner, not being vulnerable, not opening up, not utilizing the resources and the people around me, and just, I mean, for a man, just being that kind of tough, masculine person that can be there for everybody else, but never really worries about himself. So that's something that I always lived by, definitely, just being able to kind of worry about others around me instead of myself. So being able to put myself at the forefront instead of on the back burner was a very hard adjustment, but it's ultimately got me to where I am today. So I think just being able to help push other people to be vulnerable and open up and be proud of themselves for doing that. I think that's a big thing as well. Just being able to be proud of yourself for making that courageous and brave step of realizing that you are struggling and you are whether that be counseling, just chatting with friends and family, whatever it may be.
Well, there are people, understandably so, who would not want to talk about anything about this. They keep it inside them, and that's fine, I guess. I don't know, but there was something that happened in your mind that you decided to take it to that next level. It's not just talking to family and friends, being very public about it. What made you go to that next step?
I actually didn't have any intentions or plans of making that big step. there was a platform that came to me. They were called Unthinkable, and they're still doing the great things in the mental health world today. But they came to me and just asked me to write my story down, and then they would release it on their website. And I mean, whoever can read it and whoever kind of gets something from it. But I ended up receiving quite a bit of love and support from my story, and I never really put into fruition like, oh wow, this could be a thing. Like, you know, I'm in this position where I could help other people with their mental health and help other people realize that there is hope, and hopefully inspire people to take care of themselves and put themselves at the forefront, especially their mental health. So like I said, there was no original intentions or plans of it, but it's definitely something I'm passionate about now, and it's definitely something that I want to continue learning about and growing with while I also take care of myself in this process.
Well, given the tragedy that you survived, and you do openly talk about your emotions and how you feel about this, what difference do you think it's made to people out there?
I mean, I definitely can't speak for everybody or anybody that's reached out or whatever it may be. But one thing I have realized is that everybody has a story. And I mean, obviously, that day will resonate, or that day will always be something that we think about. But I mean, everybody has a story, and everybody's fighting their own battle. So if I can be a little piece of their fight through their own battle and be that little piece that gives them hope to push forward through the next day and realize that there is sometimes a light at the end of the tunnel is something that I want to continue doing, and that's something that I am definitely striving for.
You talked about the special people you lost that day, the special friends, the dear friends. How do their family members feel about you being open this way and trying to help in your way? What have you heard from the family members?
I mean, I think that it's just pure love and pure support, and we're bonded for life. And I don't think anybody is, like we love each other, and that's what we have. We have 29 beautiful families, and we're always going to keep the legacies alive of the people who we lost, and just being able to have their support is something that keeps me going. If I didn't have their support in this, I don't think I would be able to obviously do what I do or kind of continue pushing forward each and every day. Because I mean, those are 29 amazing families, and we have that strong connection, and just being able to chat with them. I mean, obviously we can't get together or anything like that, but just being able to always know that they're in my corner and I'm in their corner is something that I will forever cherish, and I don't think that'll ever go away. I mean, if I can have all 29 families at my wedding, I think that'll be a thing. So
let's look ahead a little bit to you personally. First of all, you're in Calgary. You're an Alberta kid anyway, but you played hockey in Saskatchewan. You're now in school. What are you taking?
So I'm in my fourth semester of radio and television, I guess now television broadcasting. So I'm down in Calgary doing an internship for that to finish up my diploma. And then we'll see what happens after that. I mean, I don't have any crazy future plans. I just want to kind of take it day by day right now and learn as much as I can as I go and see what happens. I mean, like I said, you never know what's going to happen, and you never know what the future's going to bring. So I'm just going to stay optimistic and keep pushing forward and stay in the mental health world, but also realize that I'm in school and I need to focus on that as well. So.
And also the second thing is you had a clothing line come out in aid of charity, and it was to promote mental health awareness. It did quite well, and now you're pushing this for a second stage of production. Tell me a little bit about that for people at home to know. Yeah,
I originally had no real plans of making it what it is. I just went to the I'm close family friends with the people in the embroidery shop in Leduc where I'm from, and I went to them with this idea, and I originally just got 3 hoodies made, one for me, one for my girlfriend, and one for my brother, and we ended up going on a hike, and we took some pictures in the hoodie, and everybody, not everybody, but a couple individuals asked where I got it, how they could get it, and I thought to myself, if I'm able to make these sweaters and make these clothes with messages that mean a lot to me across them, then hopefully initiate these tough conversations, and I think that was an easy decision for me to move forward with it and to keep, like I said, keep giving people that hope. And I mean, if it's a simple phrase on a sweater and they could look down and just remember that they're not alone, I think that's something that gets overlooked a little much. So we need to sometimes just get back to the basics and like I said, realize that you truly are not alone in this.
Well, thank you very much, Tyler, for taking the time to talk to us and share your experiences. And I know you're helping many by speaking out. So wishing you all the best and good health to you.
Appreciate it very much, Costa. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, all the best, and hope you stay safe in this.
Will do. Bye-bye for now.
Take care.
Building a deeper connection with our fans by putting them in the show. It's a new era of sports talk. The Rod Peterson Show airs from 10 to noon, Monday to Friday on Facebook Live. Join the conversation today and tune in. Online, on your phone, at home, at work. Follow us on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. And subscribe on YouTube for all the content you want to watch. Don't wait. Do it right now.
BioSweep Saskatchewan. Decontamination solutions and permanent odor removal. Breathe easy. Years of embedded odors of all types can now quickly and easily be eliminated using our state-of-the-art chemical-free decontamination technology. Our proprietary process also destroys 99.99% of viruses, bacteria, and fungi in the air and on surfaces, leaving no masking odors or residue. Our proven technology delivers permanent results. Contact BioSweep Saskatchewan today. biosweepsask.ca.
So what makes Canadian milk so good?
Canadian dairy farmers proudly meet some of the most stringent standards in the world. I'll show you. Dairy farmers work all day, every day to give you high-quality milk.
Well, I'm proud of our high standards.
High Canadian standards. Just one of the ways we're dairy farming forward.
Look for the Blue Cow logo.
Good to have you with us here tonight on this Thursday night. This is In Real Time. If you want to order your, a case of wine from your favorite BC winery, you can do it from some places in Canada, but not in others. In fact, there are a lot of little known and some well-known trade barriers out there on goods and services. And there are growing calls now to bring down those barriers, or at least make an attempt to do that. One of those voices is Warren Steinley. He's the Conservative MP for Regina, Lewvan. He is also the Shadow Minister for Economic Development and Internal Trade. And Warren joins us on the program. Warren, welcome.
Thank you very much, Costa. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you.
If not in person, over Zoom.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the reality we face these days. I want to ask you about trade barriers in this country. I mean, that's been a topic, and there have been a lot said about that over the years, but what's new about that causes you to raise this concern today?
You know, there's been a lot of conversations around internal trade recently, basically because of the pandemic. And we know there's more uncertainty now with trade and exports around the world. And it's a time for us to really take a look internally on some of the little changes that we can make that opens up our economy, grows our economy, and mostly helps us recover economically after we get through this pandemic.
Well, I mentioned in the introduction, ordering wine, and there are different rules and regulations across the country on that. But what are some examples that where there are trade barriers up that affect us here in Canada?
So I can have a couple examples. One, your example of wine is fantastic. One reason is I seconded a private member's bill by MP Conservative Dan Elvis, and he's wants to change the Canada Post Act, where it allows Canada Post to deliver beer, wine, and spirits across the country. So it's a change that we can implement through the Canada Post Act that will open up the wine markets to Canadians across the country. And it's a very easy change, and I think we're getting a lot of support across party lines. And the second example I could give, snow beef is a big thing in Saskatchewan right now. Ian Crosby, who is a friend of mine, is crossbreeding Wagyu beef with Holstein right in Caronport, Saskatchewan. And he did a CTV morning show with Ben Mulrooney talking about how we can get a meat inspection in Saskatchewan which is good for Saskatchewan residents, but then Ian cannot sell that beef to Alberta or Manitoba or anyone in Ontario that wants some great beef because of red tape and barriers, because that inspection isn't good enough for the rest of Canada, just in Saskatchewan.
Wait a minute, I can buy New Zealand lamb chops at Costco and I can't get snow beef from Saskatchewan in Ontario. That seems a bit odd, but so what?
Yep,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I said it is a bit odd, and that's something that we should look at, making sure we can really have great Canadian products, and we shouldn't have little internal trade barrier tariffs or little red tape that holds us up.
But as you know, in any kind of trade agreements, if you want to call it, here in Canada, there are winners and losers. I mean, what would happen to some Saskatchewan businesses if there was total free trade and rules and regulations in competing against bigger firms, say in Ontario or from Quebec?
Yeah, and that's a conversation I remember early on when Premier Walt first came into form government with the Saskatchewan Party, when we were talking about the New West Partnership and some of those agreements we were going to make, either with regards to labor mobility or increased trade freedom between some of the Western provinces. And we've seen a lot of benefits from that. Obviously, we are going to see some businesses that at the start possibly have some difficulties, but I'm for one believe that if we open up free trade, especially in Canada, and we have more opportunities from province to province, in the end, we're all going to benefit. And there's a few numbers out, one from the IMF that talks about how much money we're leaving on the table with internal trade barriers. It says close to $500 billion in Saskatchewan if we cannot get some of these trade barriers reduced. And I think that's something that could help the whole population on a whole and put more money into people's pockets.
You were an MLA in Saskatchewan, for those who don't know. So you've been in provincial politics, now you're in federal, but you know the conversations that go across the table provincially. What appetite would there really be in Quebec, for example, to stop huge subsidies for the milk and dairy, say, industry there? I mean, you're not going to get reelected if you do that. So what kind of guts do politicians have to make this first move to bring down these barriers when they know they could lose votes?
That's a good question, Costa. And I really believe that throughout this pandemic, Canadians are now looking more and more. There's a bigger push to help out local Canadian companies and shop, if not local, provincially, local Canadianly. And I think there's an opportunity for us to really come together as a country and support one another. And out of this pandemic, I can see the economic recovery being faster and stronger if we look at some of these barriers. You're right, there are going to be some provinces that have some aversion to doing this, but it also can be a conversation that it can be stakeholder driven as well. There are businesses, you can listen to business leaders across the country saying these are some things that need to be done. The Canadian Business Council, the Canadian Chambers of Commerce, they've all talked about what we could do and how we could reduce some internal trade barriers that increases our GDP. We really got to look at and focus on growing our GDP, growing the pie, and helping out businesses across our country.
Well, we'll see how that unfolds. It sounds like it's going to be a long conversation, but it's certainly worth having. Warren, thank you very much for joining me here tonight.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Costa. And one great thing about the Zoom meetings right now is we're also seeing the first inauguration of Colin Poular as a 135th Chamber Chair. So we're able to do both at the same time this evening.
That's multitasking. Thanks so much and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Does this look familiar? Your fans deserve an incredible arena experience. It's time for an upgrade. Stunning graphics. Revenue opportunities are just the beginning with our in-venue display systems and scoring technology. Let us help you find the best solution for your facility. DDG, always delivering the best fan experience. Find us at ddgregina.com.
IKS Live. IKS Live. Western Canada's premier production services company. LED sign rentals. Video production. Event management. Look no further than IKS Live. Visit our website. IKS Live. Always the best seat in the house. IKS Live.
This is In Real Time. I'm Costa Maragos. Good to have you with us tonight. Well, it's been quite a musical journey for a University of Regina student of business. His name is Oboise Umobuarie, and he's releasing his next extended play, or EP, next week. It's titled Feels Like a Sunday. But he has found some early success in his musical adventure. His album, Infinity, has more than 200,000 streams, and it's growing. And now this student musician is performing with some people that he looks up to in the musical world. Oboise joins me from Winnipeg, where he has been taking his classes remotely at the U of R. Hi there, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to hear more about your story, but before we get to that, tell me about this latest production, this EP that's coming out there. What's so exciting about it for you?
What is exciting about it? It's that it touches on Christianity, it touches on the gospel side of things, and that's something I've always wanted to do for a while. That's something my parents have encouraged me to do for a while because I grew up a Christian, and I wanted to talk about just things that I've gone through and things that I've experienced being a Christian, and especially after last year and everything that was dealt with, and being able to come out this year. I feel like that's a good EP to drop. I think that's a good topic to drop. It's centered around celebration, especially the last song and kind of the first as well. So it's just a way of appreciation for everything, really.
Well, you do appreciate, I know you talk a lot about your experience in Regina as a student and living in Regina. This album that has more than 200,000 streams, and I know a lot of that came from your writing in Regina. Tell me a little bit more about how you feel about getting this really nice public reception to your music.
It's been incredible because it's taken a lot of hard work and dedication, and I've really spent time trying to figure out what would work and what would sound good and what people want to hear. So I've taken time out to ask people questions and see what other people are working on and take notes from everybody in order to work on this. But the reception so far has been incredible. I do know that it's not all about the numbers. The numbers doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden great. I do know there's a lot of things that I need to work on, but I do believe that I have the skill. So I'm just trying to polish the skill and work on it so that I can eventually get where I want to be.
Tell me about your life a little bit. You were born in Nigeria, and you came to Canada with your family via the United Kingdom. Can you tell us the quick story of your journey to Canada?
We grew up in Nigeria. It's an amazing place, amazing people, amazing culture. Just we felt like we needed to move for a better life, a better setting. So we moved to the UK was the first option. I got to know a bit of people there. That's where the music really started. That's where I went into learning drums and learning the keyboard. And then we made a move to Canada. And it's been amazing so far because I've polished on my skills. I figured out that I was able to write songs, I was able to create, and it's a beautiful thing being able to create because ideas come into life. It's a feeling that you just can't explain unless you go through it.
Like, what things do you write about in your music or express in your music?
I write about usually things that I'm going through. That's the thing I've really picked up on. I know not everybody's the same way, but usually if I put out anything, you can usually tell what the general topic is. I've written about, like I said, the gospel, about love, about things I was dealing with, about feeling like I'm on top of the world, about feeling like I'm not on top of the world. So there's a whole range of things that I've talked about. And I write also for people to be able to relate, because I feel like that's the most important thing. If people can relate to it, they feel connected to the music, and that's a whole different feeling on its own.
There's also there are people of Nigerian descent in Canada who are producing some really interesting music, and you're one of them. What influence do your roots back home have on your music?
It's just growing up around music. people from Nigeria, there's a lot of music that lives around that place. So I think it was sort of inescapable. I felt like this is something I would have done regardless. So yeah, it's just listen to people everywhere, wherever you go. Even in the UK, there was a lot of Nigerian influence on people's music. So yeah, it was safe to say that going into music, I would have drawn from there at a certain time, which I have done, and I'm going to hopefully continue to do. So,
and you got to perform and produce some music with some people you look up to. Now, I have to admit, some of these names I'm not up to on it, but you can enlighten us. What's happened here with some of these really interesting collaborations you've been a part of?
Well, there was Dax. I think Dax was the first person that I worked with, and he was someone that I just admired his style of writing, his delivery, his topics and emotions in songs. So I had this will to work with him. So I reached out to him. I was able to work with him. I was able to work with Buju, who is signed to Burna Boy's label in Nigeria. I was able to work with Grime Daily and have my video on their page. So it's been a lot of people, even friends now. It's not even people that are widely known. There's people that are still under the spotlight that are trying to work their way up that I have the pleasure of working with. So that's also really inspiring for me.
And this Afrobeat sound and that seems to be gaining in popularity. What's your sense of how accepting Canadians are of that genre these days?
I feel it's starting to work its way up. It wasn't always the case. I do know that. But nearly everywhere you go, if you play a certain song for someone or mention certain names like Wizkid, Burna Boy, Davido, Fireboy, there's a lot of people that know these names and listen to the songs. So as a Nigerian, as someone who knows that music and who's connected to that kind of music and that kind of life, I'm really proud that it's making its way up gradually.
You've spent a few years at the University of Regina, 4 years? What support did you or have you received from people in Regina for your music?
The support, it was the friends. I cannot shout out my friends enough. People like Adeoluwa, Tova, Dawn, Zway, Ricky, they've been amazing. They've helped me push for things that I felt like I was not able to achieve, and just other people around. They've really helped to support my music. I've showed them the vision I was trying to achieve. I still show them the vision I'm trying to achieve, and they always have tips for me. And they're people who are not afraid to correct me. There's yes men that people have around, and I don't feel like I have it. I feel like I have friends who are always able to put me in the right direction, even though I'm falling out of place. They will tell me. So I do appreciate that.
I know you have lots of friends in Regina supporting you. They'll be listening and waiting for your next extended play to come out on January the 25th, which is called Feels Like a Sunday. What's down the road for you now?
What is down the road? I hopefully should have another album later this year. So it's been in the works for quite a bit, but I still have a way to go. But it's something that I feel is needed. It's an album that I feel is cohesive and well put together. And this is the first of its kind that I'm going to be releasing. So yes, that's just more music. That's really what's down the line.
Well, we're going to show one music video you produced recently, just to give people even a greater sense of your style. Congratulations on your early success. We wish you success and good health down the road. All the best, Oboise.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care, you too.
On the low, I don't really wanna talk, I'm on the go. I'm just keeping to myself and not involved. She be blowing up my phone, I press ignore. Yeah, she know how it goes. On the low, I'm just trying to keep it going on the road. If it ain't about the green, I'm not involved. Yeah, I'm charged up, don't get it confused. I just keep it on the low. Yeah, I'm charged up.
A little sample there of Obeise's work, and congratulations on all the streams that his album is getting. More than 200,000 streams, and wish him continued success with his music and, of course, his studies. Well, before we wrap up our show here tonight, I want to give you a glimpse of an interview I did recently that will be airing in the days ahead. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Terry Van Mackelberg. Now, I think some of you may know him as the award-winning drag queen in Regina called Flo Mingo. That's Flo, pause, Mingo. And Flo does incredible work in the community. We talk about that, but we also talk about Terry's coming out more than 4 years ago, the reaction he had from his friends and family and in the community, and how his life has changed since then. We're going to run a segment of that interview right now, but in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching us here on In Real Time, and I'll see you next time.
Well, how did this flamingo evolve though from start to where it is now?
You know what? I went to a couple drag shows and kind of got an idea of what they were doing, and I contacted a friend of mine who also does drag and just said, "This is what I want to do." Mm-hmm. And they kind of walked me through the process. You kind of first you pick a name, and then you have to get the necessities, some foundation and stuff. So they took me shopping, got the basics, and.
Like, what do you mean the basics? Because I wouldn't even know where to start with something
like that.
You need
powder and foundation. That's your most basics.
Is that right?
Just a little lip chap and mascara.